So, let's do a bit of a comparison. When EA had to rectify their stupid ending to Mass Effect 3, they gave us a free DLC ending that actually made things better. So what did Ubisoft do here? They made a DLC ending that had to be paid for, mind you, in response to an already hated ending.
And not even available for the Steam users.
Not only that, but this ending actually doesn't make things better. I dare say it makes things worse.
Yeah, it
so
does.
Have fun,
Also,
players.
On a technical note for all the European viewers, the game itself is multi-5, but the DLC is English only. Just to let you know, Ubisoft didn't even bother to act these properly dubbed.
Not even French?
No, not from what I know.
Wow.
It sounds like they were being quite spiteful about all this.
Anyway, after that amazing ending, the prince manages to find a hidden palace to seek shelter from it.
Congrats, you've doomed us all.
That totally would block Ahriman. Anyway, time for some talking.
5 minutes to get our breath would have killed you? I think we're going to need to keep moving.
Screw you.
God, why isn't this game over yet?
Elika?
Thank you.
Slap.
Okay, so you're angry.
That's putting it lightly.
But don't you see? I love you for some reason.
Hold on. I think right now the prince wants to explain the motivation.
Yes, you were.
He wanted you dead. With you dead, he would have escaped with no one to stop him.
What?
Hold on.
You're probably wondering what the hell he means by that.
Now we stand a chance. Elika.
Yep, the entire motivation of the prince is that Elika is more useful as alive in order to, defeat Ahriman for good, instead of actually having him seal and wait until maybe someone else manages to come over. The idea behind it is that the tribe, the kingdom of Elika, if you'll remember, is almost completely extinct. Therefore, ideally, there will be enough one to stop Ahriman if he manages to get out again. Instead, with Elika, being alive again, we should be actively trying to find a way to defeat Ahriman now. Now, on paper, this is not actually a bad idea. It's not too dissimilar to something like, say, the plot of Grandia 2 or Final Fantasy X, where the ancient evil, instead of having to be sealed away in a constant loop, needs to be finally exterminated for good. Problem is, this feels clearly like an afterthought, because the prince feels completely dickish about it. He gave no indication that he wanted to do like that. Instead, in the game proper, he made it look like he was, just doing it.
Well, this was an afterthought, technically.
For the power of Boner. Well, yeah, that's what I'm presenting. And now he's just feeling finding an excuse to, patch the hole that he just created.
Like, let's
also, Teo, you say that, but what you just said about his reason for reviving her, it contradicts the idea of any sort of relationship between these two still.
Why are you here and not him?
It has nothing to do with the power of Bona. He just wants her alive so he can do whatever he needs to do.
And speaking of which, look at that. There's Elika's father. Well, not perfectly fine, but now here.
He was corrupted again.
But yeah, here he is now back. I mean, I guess him jumping into Ahriman's mouth didn't kill him. Just
and here we go again.
So, Tia, want to tell our audience if they actually die, despite the fact that Elika has no reason to help the prince right now?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Jova?
Why don't you tell our viewers what happens if you supposedly die now that Elika supposedly doesn't want to help you at all, seeing as how she's disgusting with you?
She still revives you.
Yep, she still revives you. Even
and the challenge, and once again, the challenge is still managing to get an achievement. Truth be told, is not as hard. It's not as easy as in the main game. It's like only like 20 times or something. Still, very, very stupid.
Let me put it like this. This takes gameplay and story segregation to a whole new level. Elika has no reason to help the prince, yet she will still revive him.
Thankfully, as you can see, the combat is easier. Yeah, by not making the enemies as spongy. Anyway.
We have to find a way out. We get sealed.
So yeah, there is the plot of the epilogue. Just find a way out of the palace in this basic, almost endless gauntlet. Not necessarily so endless, but extremely linear. If before you had the advantage of having being a sort of an open world where you can tackle the fertile grounds, in the order that you want.
Tell me you're all right.
I'm all right. Now get going.
Yes, I'm all right. Thanks to you dooming the world as we know it.
And now instead you have these complete. There you go. Here we go.
And
Now instead you have this series of series of platforming with some combat rules between them. It's very... And in order to ramping out the difficulty instead, they put traps like this all over the damn place. It's very, very annoying. If you had annoyance already in the main game, in stages like the one, you're gonna have a really bad time with this one. And also, since you don't have any more the fertile grounds to purify or the light seed to collect, now instead you have occasionally here and there some extra platforming challenges that you can do in order to find some paintings on the walls here and there called frescoes, painting or must. They serve no other purpose but to get an achievement. So once again, get what you want.
And then remind you, people had to pay for this DLC. Like
it's not even like that cheap either. I think it's like $15.
Jesus.
Now it's funny, like at the very least, the Azura's Wrath set of episode, which was by the way far longer than this episode, but this episode is surprisingly short. Took me sort of an hour to beat it. That kind of episode was like $10. So what's your excuse, Ubisoft?
Like, yeah, it's like you said, Shirai, this DLC feels borderline spiteful. Like, it makes things worse.
It's basically the Ubisoft Montreal team saying, see guys, we were right all along and instead you just don't get us.
It's like, oh, you hated the ending? You hated the ending? Well, hey, let's see how we can make things even worse.
Also, as you can see,
You hate it now?
I'm literally just at the first obstacle. Let this set the tone for the entirety of this episode. This is just borderline hateful to play. Maybe this time I can do it. Also, even the music is not even interesting anymore, because in order to reflect the now dark nature of the world and the fact that Ahriman is corrupting everything, now the entire music is this dreadful, solitary tune that keeps going and going through the entire palace, without even changing. One of the strong things of the main game was that when the areas were cleared, you got these Lawrence of Arabia style, very whimsical music numbers, But now you don't get those anymore. It's just depressing. I get that's the entire point supposedly of the world, but it's not even a good incentive to make it play, to keep it playable.
And again, the motivation of the Prince here is, oh, you'll live to fight another day. Like, don't.
Not just that. It really begs the question: why do you care?
Again,
I get that it was like a situation where it's like, as I said, the Tsundere-like situation where it was like, oh, I'm just doing this for my donkey, and I'll go my merry way. But by the end, he truly cares. But this feels going too far in the other direction.
Doesn't help that I believe at this point we knew that the donkey was dead anyway, so...
Well, yeah, that's a big... he doesn't even know.
It's just... it's so joyless, and yet there's so little to no reason for it.
Not just that, the aesthetic...
Then why are we running? Where are we running to?
You tell me! You got us into this! You dip.
Well, again, this argument would be like, oh, if you think we don't have a chance, you should just, stand still, let him kill you.
Well, gee, maybe that's what I did originally when I sacrificed myself.
Prince, there is something called, survival instinct that kicks in, even when you supposedly your conscience tells you that's not the thing to do when you're like really depressed or something, Maybe it's Elika also is pacing through a bad time here and there.
Like,
how do I know? Also, not just that, the aesthetics of the palace are just that not interesting compared to the one of the main world. If you thought the aesthetic of the main game was like contrasting between the characters and the environment, this is even worse if you ask me. At least I could really enjoy some things like the ancient palace or the city where the warrior resides in. This is just a series of rooms and corridors. It feels generally like Final Fantasy XIII in that kind of sense.
Joy.
Here we go.
Basically, if you ever need a reason why, and if you ever want to ask someone why they hate the reboot, if at this point you haven't gotten the message there, okay, props to you, you're able to enjoy what I find to be a rather terrible game, because it's at this point where practically any goodwill that was garnered from this game before is petered out. Kaputski.
I'm really surprised the Ubisoft managed to still convince Nolan North and Kai Waldron to reprise their roles for this, because don't take it for granted. It took a couple of months before releasing this from the main game, and by that point word of mouth got ahead, and Ubisoft could have easily spared, could have easily say, oh, we'll spare some bucks and have some other literal rules voicing the characters if you don't want to.
Wouldn't have surprised me at this state of the game, considering how, again, it feels so spiteful, this game. At first during the main game, it feels...
And by the way, in case you're wondering, in case you thought that we were preparing for something else, no, that's literally the entire narrative for the DLC. The prince trying to exasperately convincing Elika that he's, the voice of reason by telling about, the fact that Ahriman can be stopped permanently by... See, there you go, that's one of the phrase codes you can collect by finding a platforming way to managing to get on top of it. Yes, Pedro?
So basically, this is psychological manipulation. He's going to convince her that she's the one who's doing wrong.
Pretty much. Not just that. There you go. Just by that, you discover. There you go. Discover a correctable. There it is. Fuck off. Not just that, Pedro. Believe me, they managed to ruin even Elika's character later on, but not in the way that you expect.
You know,
you will see.
To put it in a way you may understand, Pedro, imagine if they screwed up the ending of Last of Us. I've gone on record to say that I don't really care for the way that Last of Us ended, but even I'll admit that at the very least, I could understand Joel acting that way because we knew enough about him, saw enough of the interactions between him and Ellie in that game.
Honestly, I really don't understand why people ever grab it. It feels perfectly logical.
Like I've said before, Jova, we've already talked, like we've said in the commentary, Joel has a tremendous fear and complete inability of handling loss.
And, not just that, the Fireflies have demonstrated for the entire game that they're not to be trusted. Come on.
That too. It's one of those. It's one of those games, Jova. It's one of those endings, Jova, where you. One of those endings, Jova, where you either agree with Joel or you don't. But it's just it's more for the purpose of people being able to, debate whether or not it was the right thing to do.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll have to see how Neil handles it in the sequel.
Absolutely, but basically the way to put it is the original ending of this game is if Last of Us did it horribly, and think of this DLC as the worst possible case and scenario for Last of Us 2. Again, I'm not saying I imagine Last of Us 2 will end up like this, I'm just saying this is the worst case and scenario for what that could be like.
Yeah.
It's just...
It's kind of...
sorry,
yeah.
go on.
It becomes a very, like Taylor said, it becomes a very logical choice when you take a good look at all the signs that Joel shows throughout the entire game, because every time someone brings up the past, Joel immediately changes the topic. He refuses to even talk about it. He cannot handle he doesn't even want to process it properly. He's a genuinely psychologically damaged person, and that's part of his character.
Very true.
Anyway, the entire point of his room, as you can see, is to move around, moving down the part of the column side. As you can see, you may have seen before also, these, in order to spice things up, other than just the traps, they also bring in, once again, stuff like the malicious fog, meaning that you can't, stop too much onto single platforms, so you need to also bum rush in. Not only need to perfect this shit, but you need to do it very fast.
Give me a hand here. You got me into this, remember?
Oh, screw you.
Patches and DLC expansions have been okay to go ahead. Go try to address a lot of feedback from players. Again, there was the difficulty mode patch. And for example, Dwebs was saying that he wanted Leander to have more of a like something more to do aside from his own chapter 5. Well, that's what the second DLC did. And we also had an entire chapter dedicated to fleshing out the backstories of both Batu and Tani. Basically, like going on through a checklist of the requests from fans and basically handling them in a very in that good old-fashioned way that he knows how to do, which is basically do it in a very heartfelt and well-intentioned way. This just feels like you said, like it feels like they hate the fact that people don't like this game.
On another comparison that I mentioned slightly before, like I said, compare these to the last set of episodes, episode 4 technically, of Azura's Wrath. That DLC, like I said, was specifically made because basically Capcom was cutting away CyberConnect 2 from making a sequel. Therefore, they either needed to leave a cliffhanger open or to try to validate rushed proper conclusion. That didn't really piece onto any fans. That manages to, one, give an actual conclusion to the story. Every character who was, being left to live lived. Everyone who was left to die died, but no one criticized what the main game had to do. It was also fairly consistent with what the rest of the game had been. This... I don't even know how to start with this.
Okay, I think I know a good way to start with this. It's like, well, again, going off your Azura's Wrath comparison, when people got pissed off at that, they got pissed off more at Capcom charging for the true ending, but they didn't get pissed off at
there we go. Actually, let me explain this. Now you're being stopped by... Oh, what's this? The Warrior. Basically, as you can imagine, they recycled some of the generals as some of the boss fights that you can get here. Basically, the idea is that part of the corruption of Ahriman can take the form of the previously defeated generals in order to give an excuse, in order to give you like a sort of a challenging mode where you need to face one general, and when you defeat it, he pops up back as another one. But aside from the warrior and the hunter, I never encountered any of the other variations, like the concubine or the alchemist. So I don't really know what specifically decides what kind of generals you will be facing. Anyway, go on, Jova.
It's like, okay, yeah, I mean, when people critique Azura's Wrath, that was more so at Capcom, the people who, of course, were charging for the true ending. Yeah, that was an unbelievably dumb move, but they actually did credit the makers of the game with how good that ending was.
Sorry, Jova, if I interrupt you, but I followed people like Angry Joe around the time this was done. The main criticism that people had was claiming that the original ending was supposed to be in the main game, and then Capcom cut away with it from it, which is clearly not what happened. So that's what I'm mostly saying, bro. Yes, you can argue that charging for it may be a dick move, and that I can understand to you, but not that it clearly was present and we cut away, and I also explained why.
Well, that's because a lot of people were confused with that and the facts weren't clear, but...
And also the fact that cheating on Capcom was the in thing to do.
Admittedly, T.O., Capcom weren't exactly making that hard.
Not a good excuse to find that make-up reasons, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I won't deny that one wasn't true.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I mean, if you just make up reasons to do that, when by the time people who have legitimate complaints against them, people on the outside will just shrug at you going, well, I would sympathize with you, but you've been making shit up about them, so how do I know this one?
Alright. One thing to remember though is like...
continue with your point, Jova.
Right, yeah. The legit reasons to hate on Capcom did come first, but yeah, it's like, well, with Azura's Wrath, that was that. This, again, not only is this actually actively all the developers' faults, but they're charging for, again, something that should have been part of the game itself if they really think that it's that important. Because forcing players to pay for this stuff, mind you, was bad enough, but then the fact that they make this so bad only makes it even worse.
Not just that, like, to go back to Jova's analogy from before, like I've said before, with Joel, like, we had plenty of indications and overall fitting with his character, whereas in here the prince doesn't have a proper fleshed out character to even justify something like this. He just does it because there's no actual real connection between these two characters to justify him doing something like this. Okay, I have no problem with a character doing something that's technically morally wrong as long as the story justifies it, because Guess what? To quote Aaron Hehaz, the lead writer of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Dragon Prince, don't make your characters likable. Make them complex. A character doesn't necessarily have to be morally in the right to be a good character. It just needs to be an interesting character. The problem is, there's nothing of the sort in this game, because the characters are about as interesting as planks of wood.
Anyway, see you for the next part.
See you then.
See ya.
See ya.